So, I think,
Right? Too much?
yeah, too much spotlight. That's good. If you can turn it down there, it's gonna be even better.
And move these chairs?
I thought you were going to sit like you did. I thought you were going to
Alright guys, so it's really an honor and a pleasure for me to be here speaking in front of you guys. It's my first time to talk in front of you guys on youth night. I've done it at Bible study a few times, you know. I've done it at another church, the church that I grew up in with adults. That was scary.
I was there.
But you know, hopefully it's not as scary here, you know, among family, right?
Yeah.
I've been coming to Las Buenas Nuevas for about 3 years, although the first 2 years I hid from everybody, and you know, I would come to church and leave right away. I would go to Bible study and leave right away too, and I wouldn't really talk to anybody. But the last year, really, God has taken a hold of me, and you know, He's really been doing some things in my life. He's set me in places. He's put things in my heart, put thoughts in my mind, and put words in my mouth. So I'm going to share some of the things He's given me to talk about. So we're going to read John 13:3 on verse 3 to verse 10. And this is the story of Jesus washing the feet of the disciples. It's a story that I think we're all familiar with. I think when we read this story, we think about we have to humble ourselves. We have to allow God to wash our sins. But I'm going to take a little different toll on the story today. So if you guys can join me to read. It says, Jesus knew that the Father had put all the things under His power, and that He had come from God and was returning to God. So He got up from the meal, took off His outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around His waist. After that, He poured water into a basin and began to wash His disciples' feet, drying them off with a towel that was wrapped around Him. So He came to Simon Peter, who said to Him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Jesus replied, you do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand. No, said Peter, you shall never wash my feet. Jesus answered, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. Then Lord, Simon Peter replied, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. Jesus answered, a person who has had a bath needs only to wash his feet. His whole body is clean, and you are clean, though not every one of you. And yeah, that's it. So I'm going to continue on with the topic of hope. But I'm going to talk a little bit about losing control. And human beings don't really like to lose control, as you guys probably know. When you guys are in a situation and you guys feel like things are not under your power, things are not under your at your grasp, where things are just can change without you even being involved, it's scary. We don't like to be in those situations, and that's just human nature. We like to take charge. We like to feel like we make decisions that lead us to the path that we want to go down. And you can think of a car, you know, when someone is driving and they lose control, it could lead into an accident that could be fatal. So our lives are very similar. We can lose control to the point where it could be fatal. And a lot of people, when they lose control, their option, the thing they go to, is suicide. That's the way they fix things. They think that taking the exit or ending the pain is the way to deal with losing control. But so that makes losing control look bad. It makes it seem like it's a bad thing to go through. But I'm going to tell you that losing control could probably be the best thing that you do. But that's if you lose control and you give it up to God. I was reading earlier this week online a suicide note. This Iraqi soldier, 30 years old, very young. He left a suicide note for his family, and some of the phrases, some of the things he said on it just really struck me. It was really sad to read his note of just full of sadness, full of just he had lost all hope, he had lost all pleasure in living life. Some of the things he said to his family, he said, "You will find that your world is better without me." He said, "I'm too trapped in a war to be at peace, and I'm too damaged to be at war." He says, he ended up his letter saying, "The world is better without me." And I'm pretty sure, we're not gonna do a test, but I'm pretty sure we've all probably said that at one point of our lives. The world is probably better without me. And I was just looking at the story and I said, wow, what sadness was just had overwhelmed this guy's life. His whole future, his whole career was just so sad that he felt he needed to end it. And I realized that by him taking his life, he interfered with the plan that God had for his life. And if you look at Jeremiah 29:19, that tells us a little bit about what kind of plan God has for us. He says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." And I believe this young man, he interfered with the plans that God had for him. God could have given him hope. God could have changed his future. But he decided it was just too hard. And I'm here to tell you that I'm all about what the plans that God has for our lives. I'm all about it. Because I almost interfered with the plans that God had for my life. I lived a life that I completely forgot, or maybe I just chose to deny God. I chose to live a life where God didn't exist in my life. And it was mostly through my college years. I just lived a life where God didn't matter. And I can tell you that it was a point in my life where not necessarily I could have ended up in suicide, but I could have ended up there a few times. And I had grown up in church, so I knew what was the difference between right and wrong. I knew there was a hell, I knew there was a heaven, I knew there was a God that was looking at me, that was looking and would one day judge me on the actions I was taking. So every night before I would go to sleep, I would really pray. I would only say, "God, please don't kill me, because if I die, I know I'm going to go to hell." So I lived in this constant fear of just death. It wasn't fear of the Lord, not in fear and reverence where I wanted to not disobey Him. It was just more of a fear of, like, I don't want to die, because I know I'm not okay. I know things are not right. I don't want to die. So I lived in this world. My world was kind of dark. It was without peace. There was no peace in my heart. And college was full of I almost flunked out of college. I had very bad friendships, very bad relationships, and I was hungover most of the time. And one of the times that I was drunk, I almost died. It was one night, and just decided what the heck. It was when you let alcohol into your life, you almost get to the point where this is the answer to all your problems. It becomes Thursday night, it becomes Friday night, it becomes Saturday night. This is the fix. No, it's not the fix. And that one night, it was getting harder to breathe every second. And
the friend who was taking care of me, she didn't sleep that one night because she was afraid I was gonna die. She just couldn't go to sleep, so she just stayed up the whole night, just watching me, making sure I was still breathing. And and I still didn't snap out of it. I almost died, but I didn't really think to reflect on my actions, on what had led me to the point where I almost, not necessarily took my life as suicide, but it really would have been suicide because I would have interfered with the plans that God had for my life. And time went by, months went by, I made it out of college, and something inside of me just kind of turned. It kind of woke up and said, something is wrong. You gotta do something, because you keep doing this, you're not gonna end up okay. And nobody had to come talk to me. I would talk to counselors, they couldn't tell me anything. They don't, I sat there the whole time just crying, but they couldn't give me any advice that would help me, change it or, make things better. But it was something inside of me that woke up, something that talked to the inner me and it said, you gotta do something. And that thing that woke up inside of me was my spirit. My spirit was calling, it was yelling at me, telling me, you gotta go back to God. You gotta go back to God. And when your spirit wakes up, you can't ignore it. It just doesn't stop. And every night, it's just like, you gotta go back to God. So I packed up my stuff, I loaded up the truck, finished school, and came back to LA. Moved back with my family. And for about 2 years, I struggled going back to church. Because my spirit had made the decision to go back to church, I would sit there and it was so hard to listen. It was so hard to pray. It was so hard to read the Bible. When you stop reading the Bible for 5 years, when you stop talking to God for 5 years, it is not easy to just one day go back to talking to Him, go back to reading His Word. It was so hard. I would go to church and all I wanted to do was get on my phone, check my Facebook, text somebody.
Oh.
Because, that's where my mind was. And I struggled for some time. But I was consistent. I was persistent in trying to, I gotta go to church. I know this is what I need to do. And I had started working. So I was, after work, I would make plans. I'm going to go to church today. And one Tuesday, I'll never forget it for the rest of my life, and I like telling the story. One Tuesday, I made plans to come to church. Said, all right, I'm going to go to church. But I got home, and I was a little tired, so I decided to take a nap. And I fell asleep, put my alarm where I'm going to wake up 6 o'clock, so be at church at 7. When my alarm sounded, I was like, oh, I don't want to wake up. I want to go to church. And I turned it off and I went back to sleep. And a little later, I don't know if I dreamt it, if I really saw it, but I opened up my eyes and my hand was hanging out. And in my hand was a Bible. And I just remember seeing it, and then I went back to sleep. When I woke up later, I remember that I had seen the Bible. So I started looking around, and I said, I saw a Bible. So I started looking at my covers, and, there was a Bible there. It's a Bible I never had seen. I don't know who it belongs to. I don't know where it came from. But I was so sure my mom and my sister had put it there. So I was so mad at them. They were out there in the living room. They were eating dinner, sitting at the table, and I go and I yell at them, why did you guys put a Bible in my hand? That is so not cool. I was like, you guys are trying to scare me. And my sister started laughing. She just laughed. And until I knew it was you. And then she said, you know what, I'm laughing, but it was not me. And I said, that's not true, whatever.